you became the director of vibes. A lot of people made fun of you. No one really knows what it is. I think to this day, we probably still don't even know what it is.
Director of vibes is a lot. Like, I think at the core, most of my efforts are focused on the community building and the marketing side of things. But in the same light, I get to sit everywhere, and I'm on strategy, and I'm in product engineering meetings, marketing, I really get to sit across all departments and have a say in everything, which is my favorite part about it.
1 year later, we're finally recording this conversation. I think it was about 370 days ago, Thread Guy actually doxed for his first time on this podcast. We were celebrating his 10K followership, which is now about 12x'd. I think you got some bots in there somewhere the bots literally bought the breakout and just completely obliterated you. So about to 120K now. This dude is set a precedent for marketing, director of vibes, shit posting, a handful of different things. So I thought we'd bring him back again and kind of connect. So Thread Guy, thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words, and glad to be back. I very vividly remember the 10K docs, and we've both really come a long way since. So excited to chat again and catch up here.
Yeah, man, dude. I'm sure it's hard for you to remember because you're literally doing spaces every day. You're tweeting 400 times a day. Everything kind of just gets lost a little bit. We'll just dive in immediately because most people are very familiar with who you are. Last time we talked, you were still kind of almost faceless. You had just doxed yourself. This was before Jenkins, the valet. You became the director of vibes. A lot of people made fun of you. No one really knows what it is. I think to this day, we probably still don't even know what it is. So from when you came on the team to Jenkins to where it is today, how has that position changed since it was originally envisioned and then to where it's grown to now?
Yeah, it's a good question. And honestly, when we started, it was kind of like, I picked the title. D's for fractional, now to Sarah, was, to my knowledge, the only person that like had the director of vibes sort of title. And I really didn't know what it was going to be exactly and how we were going to mesh, but sort of the flexibility around it is what really brought me in. And yeah, I mean, I've been with Jenkins since April, and director of vibes is a lot. Like, I think at the core, most of my efforts are focused on the community building and the marketing side of things. But in the same light, I get to sit everywhere, and I'm on strategy, and I'm in, product engineering meetings, marketing, I really get to sit across all departments and have a say in everything, which is my favorite part about it. But I would really say at the core, like, it's focused on the community building, the marketing, and the vibes.
Gotta love it. I actually followed a similar suit with you with joining Emblem, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. But I guess just from an internal standpoint of joining an NFT forward company who's basically storytelling NFTs, which is still kind of an evolving medium, although most NFTs are generally some sort of storytelling. As you sit upon multiple boards and discussions, what was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome? And then what was the, I guess you'd say the biggest surprise from operating a crypto company?
Yeah, I would say the biggest hurdle is it was really my first time in a professional workplace and doubling down with it being fully remote. I had just a lot of like adjustments to learn, like how to function within this structure, how to properly collaborate with people and work together. Like, what is the best way to sort of get up to speed and on the same page as everyone? Because remote is tough. Like, I know a lot of people really like it, and I like it too. It has this added layer of flexibility, but you don't get the same face-to-face connection. It's harder to ask questions. So that's definitely, it's been a transition, but it's been pretty seamless in my opinion after we got over sort of the initial learning curve. And I mean, the biggest surprise, I wouldn't say it's like a massive surprise. I kind of expected it, but I would say how much I've been able to learn from people on the team that aren't really crypto native either, because I feel like being focused in Web3 and spending all our time with NFTs and crypto, at least for me, I start to get this like perception that only people in crypto like know things. And there's like this whole world outside. And so just like the real life business skills and person-to-person skills that I've been able to pick up from people I never thought I would honestly ever even be in the same room is pretty incredible. And it's been a lot of fun to experience something like this.
Yeah, I've worked in startups before I got into crypto, and I'm now working for a crypto team, and I've learned that everybody's really just winging it.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That was awesome to see. It was the perfect fit too.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really, it is the same thing as you. It's the product side and it's the marketing side and branding. One thing I want to mention, which is, it seems more pertinent in NFTs than in crypto, and I've been here since 2016. The devs in NFTs are superior devs, but their marketing skills is absolutely awful. So this trend of director of vibes or bringing influencers from like the niche, I think this is a trend that's only going to continually grow. It'll probably evolve over time, but maybe UDs and a handful of other people get to be those pioneers who kind of set those pillars for all of us to follow, like myself.
Yeah, I agree. Like, one of the things I've learned in NFTs, like I remember when I really came into the space and was focused on it, like August 2021, I had this perception that utility was the only thing that matters and art is stupid. Not art is stupid, but like PFP art is stupid. And that concept doesn't make sense. Ultimately, the utility is going to be the cream that rises to the top. And I feel like what we've seen in the following 2 years is utility is dead if you can't get attention to it. And that is one of the biggest things. Like, I didn't realize the impact of attention, especially in a space like NFTs. And I think to bring it back to your point, the teams in the projects that can't really market and can't get eyes on what they're doing really struggle to find their footing in the space.
Yeah, it's completely true. It's something that I had noticed, and Adam McBride and I, who got hired to Emblem at the time, I'd say, we're probably 2 of the top 5 largest accounts in this niche of historical NFTs, which gets kind of shit on, which is okay because history will always history will always have interest, even if it's a small fraction, right? So if you say 1% of people are interested in history of a 100 million person market eventually, which is what we're hoping for with NFTs, then 1 million people for 2 million assets is like quite, that's like a quite scarce kind of idea. But we were kind of just following you. We were looking at like what you were doing. We were looking at like what the ENS community was doing with ENS Vision. And we were realizing that, the NFT space is growing so much that there's all these like micro communities that are kind of based around a certain NFT classification, whether it's music NFTs or storytelling NFTs. Obviously, PFP culture is the largest for now. And then you have arts probably number 2, or it could go back and forth. But those who double down on these like certain niches, I think are the ones that are going to find a lot of success. And we realized that the historical community is, and that's how we met too, for background. When Thread Guy was first starting, I think you were at like 1,000 followers or 2,000 followers. You were in the Mooncats community, and I helped give you information about Mooncats and kind of just like some other like background knowledge for crypto in general. I had realized very quickly that this community was a little bit too aggressive. It didn't have any fun and obviously lacks a lot of kind of opinions and shit posting. And so I've been trying to bring that to this kind of community because that's kind of where the attention is. Of course, it doesn't have to be like the PFP culture, but I've come much more to the middle that, you need to take these like modern mechanics that are being utilized in these PFP, the PFP culture and the art culture, and apply it to the small niche, which then brings more attention. And it's kind of been like subtly working over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, you're sort of the face of the whole historical NFTs scene, and I'm a fan. Like I'm fully. It does get shit on a lot, but so does a lot of niches. I'm fully confident that historical NFTs are going to be huge. I don't really see how they couldn't, assuming NFTs are adopted the way that we think they are, right? It's just like history repeats itself. History matters in every other. I mean, I came from sports cards to Top Shot to NFTs. Like it's the same thing in collectibles. I don't see how that wouldn't be a niche that really blows up. And I think that you're sort of the perfect person to be the face of it, because you have a really good balance. Like you can sit in both sides. Like you can be on the PFP, the crazy hype Twitter side, and then you can be like extremely knowledgeable and an incredible onboarder for the historical NFT side. And yeah, I still have my Mooncats. I'll hold.
Let's go.
Yeah.
The collectors. Yeah. Before we move on from that, because I don't want to beat historical NFTs to death. It's really a community of collectors. And I think a lot of the flippers who come in, they just get completely annihilated. It's sad to watch people lose money, but you have to understand that these people, like Mooncats, for example, it's been around for over 5 years now, or almost 5 years. And it's about 52% of original minters still hold their assets. So you're saying 12,000 of the 25,000 are still with the original person who claimed it. So that just kind of shows to the degree that these people who are buying these kind of like assets in this like older or early NFT section, they're just not selling. They're just putting it in the vault and kind of like calling it a day. But as we move into 2023, are there any NFT categories that you think are going to find more success or are growing that you're kind of watching and commentating on actively?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just like shamelessly optimistic and shouldn't be. I'm desperate for gaming though. I mean, it's like what I kind of can't even fathom the fact that like Dookie Dash is the best Web2 game we've ever seen. It's like it's dope. Don't get me wrong. They did a great job. They killed it. They crushed it. But I mean, it's kind of crazy to me that that's where we are in the gaming niche. And like Web3 gaming it's bizarre. And all the sort of the voices of that space are always like, I don't know why, Web2 gamers don't like us. Why doesn't Web2 game? It's like, well, Web2 gaming hates us because the infrastructure is pathetic. You know what I mean? It's like we have really gotten nowhere since 2021 when I really was paying attention. And I realized, right, you can't build an MMO metaverse interoperable in a year, like absolutely. But the fact that there isn't more fun, focused, Dookie Dash like experiences on the blockchain is crazy to me.
What do you think the community is lacking then? Do you think there's a lack of funds for some of these teams who are maybe capable of it? Is it the skills that the NFT teams possess? Like, for example, a 19-year-old raising $70 million for Pixelmon, which just becomes a meme? Or is there something else that is an overarching theme that we're not seeing?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not an expert. I think it's time is the biggest issue here. It just takes time, which it's frustrating to hear like time, because ultimately gaming to me is going to be one of, if not the biggest onboarding tools, because, you get like an Aiden Ross or a Ninja or somebody on a Twitch stream with 100,000 live and watch them make $100 from a run in a game. And then boom, it clicks. Like I think right there, it clicks at scale. And honestly, if that were to happen right now, I don't think NFTs are ready for it. We don't have the infrastructure built to support 100,000 people to come in right now if they even wanted to, or 1 million or 10 million. But I think it's just time. I hope it's just time rather than technical capabilities here. So I don't know, man. The gaming scene loves to say next year this, next year this, next year this, and we've been saying next year for a few too many.
Yeah, to give you a little history lesson, actually going to the early Bitcoin days, very, very early, Satoshi actually told Julian Assange to not integrate Bitcoin into WikiLeaks because Bitcoin wasn't ready. And he said that the community needed more time, and that if he did integrate it into WikiLeaks, that it was going to completely clog the Bitcoin blockchain and might just like end up being the death for it. So those kind of things are true. Although the NFT community has has an attention of a goldfish. It's completely awful. All the win floors and things like that. It also just completely decimates a lot of communities. Diving into, and this is a pretty interesting component of you. When we first talked last time, you were talking about how you wanted to increase your Twitter, your tweeting, and you're tweeting, I think like upwards of like 300 or 400 times during like the peak bull market. Eventually you transitioned to Twitter Spaces. And I think this is like kind of where your hockey stick growth came from. Hosting it daily, you grew your skills. So from that first Twitter Spaces, which I believe was, I don't know, like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that, to now, applying the same question before, what was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome? And then what is the power of being a Twitter Spaces host that commands regularly 500 to 1,000 people?
So the biggest hurdle I had to overcome was terrified of public speaking. Like straight up, I hated it. And I was always like, even in school, like I was always like a very extroverted, like athlete, social. But like, give me a school presentation and I'm like, fuck, I can't do it. I hated it. I don't know why. I just hated it. And I had gotten to this point where, you know, it was Twitter threads only, sort of built this core following, transitioned to like the shit posting, the memeing, sort of live news feed, hit the timeline all day, which really supercharged my growth. And I got to this point where I was like, what I'm putting in versus what I'm getting out of the text content all day has really stagnated. And I feel like I'm at this transition where I need to change something to keep moving up at this speed, or else, I don't know, I feel like it's really easy to sort of get stale and uninterested as fully text content, especially when I'm just doing the same shit over and over and over again. And it was obvious to me that the speaking and being able to articulate yourself on a stage was sort of the missing piece to the puzzle. And 6 months ago, I did the first space I ever co-hosted was with Shillin Villain, who he really taught me how to do Twitter Spaces. Now I know he's a fairly polarizing figure, a lot of mixed opinions, but the one fact that you can't take away from him, whether you like him or not, is he's like a master at live audio entertainment, and I think really paved the road for a lot of people, myself included. And that's where I started, and we did that every day for like 4 or 5 months, and I think I really got to experience the ins and outs and the positives, the benefits of what you can gain and accomplish on a Twitter Spaces. And let's see, probably like November till now, I've been hosting my own every single day, which is probably a couple days off, but the goal is every day. The 2023, I'm trying to go 365 for 365. And what I've noticed from Twitter Spaces is you can connect with anyone on the timeline. Like being a reply guy, you can basically get into touch with anybody. But on Twitter Spaces, voice to voice, you can build a connection that's just so much more deep rooted than a couple replies or a couple DMs. And through Twitter Spaces, like I've formed some really, really genuine relationships with people I never imagined I could. And the second part is the learning aspect of it. Like, it's hard to have a deep conversation on the timeline. Just you're technically limited, right? You get 240 characters on a tweet. You got to go back and forth, get a response. Maybe you're busy, 45 minutes. Like there's friction points to learning on the timeline. But you get on a Twitter space, man, and you do an interview with someone, and you have a debate back and forth. And I mean, in an hour, in 2 hours, the topics in the ground that you can cover is wild. And when I finally sort of got over my little fear and just got into Twitter Spaces, that to me has been a fucking game changer. Because now even like a podcast like this, the 10K one, I haven't listened back to the recording, but I was probably all squeamish. And it just changes what you can do and your limitations. And I think Twitter Spaces is like the obvious next step for once you build a following on the Twitter timeline.
The difference between podcasting and Twitter Spaces, I think, is the intimate connection with the guest versus when you're in a Twitter Spaces, it's faceless, and you also have the audience reaction. So you could kind of be persuaded to move in a certain direction. Yep. For example, this space, you're very calm and collected, and you're able to articulate thoughtful responses. In the Twitter Spaces, you're yelling, right? You're being more entertaining. Is that kind of how you see Twitter Spaces, as an entertainment show? And for those who aren't familiar with your show, what would be the description, maybe in like 3 sentences?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty much like a daily NFT crypto talk show, like what's happening right now. I would say mostly focused on NFTs, but there's definitely this entertainment, like loud, engaging side to it, because it got pretty saturated. Everyone was doing the same thing, covering the same topics. And the thing about Twitter Spaces is, well, first of all, I'll say I see it very similar to like a Twitch or like a YouTube live, where it's a live stream, but you entertaining a live audience, but it's limited because there's no, as an audience member, it's fully passive. Right? If you're not on stage and actively have to unmute to respond to something or interact, you're probably scrolling the Twitter timeline, phones in your pocket, earbuds in, phones on the counter, you're making dinner, whatever. There's no reason to actively be engaged and like look at the screen because there's nothing there. That is the one downfall of Spaces. Like, I think they're desperate to add like just a screen share, just add a screen share, so we can scroll OpenSea or scroll the markets or whatnot. I'm not sure if they're going to do, video like a stream, but that's really how I see it. And because of that, like, I've been on Twitch a little bit trying to mess around with how do the streamers do it? Like, how do the YouTube streamers do it? I think there's a lot of similarities there, but Twitter Spaces limits you because the audience is fully passive. So in order to get someone in and keep them there, it has to be, fast paced. In my opinion, the best spaces are fast paced.
You mentioned that many of the Twitter Spaces kind of circle around the same idea. One of the trending topics I've seen is kind of this like expose the bad actors, but also kind of TMZ like shit on what's happening in some of these like influencers' life. It's very similar to what's happening on YouTube with people like CoffeeZilla and Spencer Cornelia and stuff that are kind of just like exposing all these bad actors. Why do you think that's so gravitating towards the NFT community, and that many grifters even begin to kind of hop on this idea and kind of expose other grifters, even though maybe they're the person that should be exposed?
I think at the core, people fucking love drama. Like, Web3 Twitter, like NFT Twitter is like a reality TV show. It really is. And it's like you have all these characters and you follow the dialogue through days, weeks, months. People love the drama, I think, first and foremost. I don't love that approach, though. Like, a couple things. I think on my space, I always try to be open, honest, and candid. And if there's something we need to call out, we're calling it out. But I don't love the focus of the Twitter space being the TMZ drama show, because I had a few good conversations with, actually in LA, I had some conversations with content creators and we were talking about it. And I think taking that drama path is like the Keemstar route. And you are fully focused on what other people are doing at all times and shitting on it. And it's entertaining. It's funny. People like it. But I think you cap yourself really low with how far you can actually grow because you're dependent on somebody else's content to get views. Whereas if you go the other route and you kind of dabble in both, you aren't afraid to call people out. You aren't afraid to have a strong voice, but you also focus on, pushing the space forward in your way, like whatever that is, creating your own content, your own topics, your own stories. I think the ceiling is much higher, and the audience that wants to listen to that rather than that is also much higher. And I think as the space grows, that sort of like full-time drama TMZ is going to be what TMZ is now. You know what I mean? TMZ isn't the biggest outlet for a reason.
And what kind of backlash happens when you do expose somebody, or you're talking about a controversial figure on the spaces and you have maybe 500 people listening? Does that individual tend to reach out? Does their community kind of gravitate around you and then begin to flood your replies? How do you combat that kind of thing when those topics happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. And I think a lot of times people are incentivized not to speak up because people have really strong opinions on NFT Twitter, especially because there's a lot of money on the line, right? And if you are on a stage with 500,000 people exposing or calling out a founder, something of that nature, and they have 10,000 holders that invested 1,000 plus, there's going to be a lot of angry people. And I think part of the reason, like, a lot of large voices just choose to stay silent on topics because it's not worth the hassle. Definitely people go hard in the DMs, people go hard in the replies. I think ultimately calling something out when it needs to be called out is plus EV for everybody, and you win more than you lose. But it's definitely the case that the more drama you participate in, the more backlash you have to deal with, and people struggle with it. I think we've seen a lot of people like really struggle with taking on the villain role, for lack of a better term, in the space, because it especially on a platform like Twitter, where it's so now, it can feel like it's never ending, and it's hard to zoom out sometimes and look at the big picture rather than what's happening in this moment. And I think that can be a detriment to a lot of people.
Twitter's really revolutionized the news cycle. I try to talk about this. I talk about this topic pretty often, about how when you think about the history of news cycles, it began with like the telegram, where somebody would hear something, you'd receive something, or you'd receive a telegram, you'd hear about the news, and then the community would talk about it for about a month until they received the next telegram. Then it went to the newspaper, and then the news cycle was about a week. Then you had the radio, which was about a day. Then you had the TV, which was about every hour. And now Twitter, it's like every 15 minutes or so. So the hive tends to kind of circle around something different. So it's easy to get lost, especially in NFT Twitter. Crypto Twitter is not as bad. It's more the NFT side that gets caught up in the drama and wanting to hear something new, or what floor is pumping, or who's rugging, right? Like the idea of a rug had been around for a long time, but I think the NFT community's definitely taken this and almost like immortalized it and kind of commoditized it as well. I mean, look at Farouk, not him for rugging, but he took the idea of a rug radio and used that, used that euphemism to then build a whole brand around it, and kind of creates a little bit more of a happy environment. But sticking on the topic of influencers, you mentioned that you went to LA and you've been pretty public about, hanging out with these different type of individuals. Talk about this idea of like an influencer Illuminati that the community kind of always talks about. Is it real, or what happens when you get a bunch of individuals in the NFT space who have a large following together? What's kind of the main types of conversations that are being had?
That, first of all, I love the football conversation. I mean, we were having a conversation about it on Spaces yesterday, and basically what we were saying is just it's the truth that by default, the more followers you have, probably the more people you know. So by default, the more information you have on certain topics. I think that is a true statement. The one thing that I really gravitated towards in LA is like I'm in Virginia, right? So there's essentially nobody from Web3 that I spend time with out here. And being in person, being in LA and getting to meet and hang out and talk with all these, really smart and bright individuals in the space, it's just, I would say it's inspiring more than anything, because there's a lot of people that are doing big things in this space, and they really live, breathe, and bleed like NFTs and crypto. And getting to talk to all these people IRL, and also seeing like how young some of the smartest people in this space are, I think it's inspiring and comforting to know that where we're going is in good hands for the most part. And man, something about, in the same way that you can go deep and really connect with someone on Spaces, one-on-one conversation in person is like the top level to that. And it was a pretty eye-opening experience for me, especially as a content creator and someone that's focused on, entertainment and making content. I was like, man, I got to get out of the basement. I got to get to LA ASAP, because I feel like I'm wasting time by not being surrounded by these people. Being the dumbest one in the room in LA was encouraging. Like, that felt good. It felt like the right place to be.
Yeah, it is very fulfilling. For those that just heard, the alpha Thread Guy's moving out to the west at some point in the future. Las Vegas, where I'm located, actually has a fairly large NFT community as well. And the ground game is something that's heavily underappreciated within an ecosystem that's primarily digital of crypto. You can kind of see as you interact with more people, those who maybe don't socialize with the outside world as much, because it becomes kind of like this echo chamber. But then you go and meet these people, whether they have 100,000 followers or 50 followers, talking with those individuals in person and then having a thoughtful conversation. It's very rewarding, and it also changes your perspective, because there are a lot of smart people on crypto Twitter or NFT Twitter that don't have a large following who are much smarter than me, but they get lost in the attention game because it's not as entertaining, or maybe they just don't want to participate in, the attention rat race that kind of begins. It's something that I recommend most people to go to the local events, go to the crypto conferences. Like when you go to NFT NYC and just hang out with, and in that energy of the room, it makes you feel like you're a part of such a larger mission than just trying to trade NFTs and capture, the most value from one another. It's like you're actually building something of the future that's going to be utilized by hundreds of millions or hopefully billions of people.
Yeah. IRL events are an absolute game changer. I think if you've never been to one, I would heavily encourage you to do so. I think you made a great point as well, that there's so many people that get lost in the noise on Twitter that are really bright and have a lot that they can teach you. Those are the connects that you make at NFT NYC or Art Basel that are much harder to make on Twitter, because it's loud. Twitter's loud, and it's really hard to cipher through the noise. But the IRL connections is just on a different level. And I went to Art Basel. I had an incredible week. I went to the last NFT NYC, had an incredible week, and I will definitely be going to future ones.
Yeah, I'll be at NFT NYC, so if you're there, we'll finally be able to meet in person. So we'll have to share some drinks now that you're 21. So happy belated birthday to that.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your creative process as somebody who's begun to transition, as you mentioned, text-based, tweeting very frequently to Twitter Spaces every day. You've recently started your Twitch channel. How do you think about curating content that's relevant, right? You're somebody who tweets very, You tweet very honest opinions. It's also very witty, but it's also semi-funny as well, and has to be quick. So how do you get to this position of being able to create a tweet very spontaneously that garners a lot of attention, but it's also very relevant?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think at the core, like I spend a ton of time observing, and I'm especially people that I look up to and take inspiration from, like all the tweets, read all of them, especially at the beginning. Like I would just download someone's tweet history and just read it like a fucking book. Same with Twitter Spaces. Like I would find a couple posts, a couple shows that I wanted to pull bits and pieces from, and I would just listen and watch, like when does the number go up? When does the number go down? Like what tweet structure did well for this person? What tweet structure didn't do well for this person? And taking that and just throwing it all at the wall. Like that's been my approach, because I've changed my style quite a few times. Like it was all threads, and I thought that was going to be my bread and butter to get to wherever I wanted to go. And then I realized, like, wait, this worked well, but there's something that I can do better, which I stumbled on organically, went into that full force. And I was like, wait, this is fun. I'm doing well, but there's something that can help me grow to another level, transition to Spaces. So it's really, I like the approach of throw a bunch of darts at the wall and see what sticks. But I think the most important aspect of it is if I want to be good at something, I need to do it often. And often to me is as frequently as I can do it, which is really every day. Like that was the Spaces approach. It was like, because I remember even before I did the first Shillin' Villain space, I had a deal lined up with NFT Now, Function, and Not Katarina to do a podcast. And we were going to do a podcast once a week for 30 minutes. And it sounds good. Like, oh yeah, I can commit to once a week for 30 minutes, no problem. But in reality, once a week for 30 minutes is not going to get my speaking at the level it needs to be at. And that has really been the approach, is like, do it often, and the growth is rapid. And the one thing I've noticed, like with Spaces, because again, I was very timid and not really feeling the Spaces speaking. And the best part about doing it every day is when I go on the stage at 1 p.m. today, I could have the best show in the fucking world. I still got to wake up tomorrow and have a new slate, new clean day tomorrow. I could go on today and completely bomb, say terrible things, say something stupid, like be off topic for whatever. I have another one tomorrow. And I think that sort of like repetitive nature and consistency has been the key to everything that I do creatively.
Yeah, it's like the 10,000 principle, which you're a former sports player. I'm a former sports player. You're taught that you need to practice. You need 10,000 hours to become essentially an expert. Some people do it in less. Some people take more, but that's kind of like the general approach to it. Tell me a little bit about you. And what I mean by this is you morphing and taking your brand and creating something of value in the NFT space. Do you think about creating a project? And I see people on the timeline shilling you to create your project because, you could probably sell it out, because we've seen, whether it's for better or worse, people with large followings, they can, siphon their community for value, and then just walk away and rug their community, or they build something substantial off of their audience. Because I think it's generally, once you hit about that 100,000, probably about 50,000 followers, it's almost guaranteed that you'll sell out a mint just based off of the pure hype. How do you think about that, being in a position of 120,000 followers and people just consistently wanting you to launch some sort of project?
Yeah, I had this moment. I'll honestly never forget it. It was probably like 8 months ago. I probably had like 50, 60,000 followers. It was like peak bull market, volume going crazy. Like everything was just euphoric. And I was in a car driving home from dinner with my parents, and I just remember like I had no money. Like I had some money in NFTs. I had the 8, but I had like no money. And I just remember saying like, yo, I could really spin up, launch a project in a month and make $1 million. Like I was like, straight up, I could make $1 million like 30 days from now from this project. And they were like, do it. Like, okay, like do it then. What do you mean?
Get out of my house, son.
Get out of the fucking basement. Like, do it. And I was like, honestly, I don't want to. Like, I feel like by not doing this it was something along the lines of like $1 million in what I want to play for is so short-sighted and so just like instant gratification that I don't need. Like, I feel like what I'm playing for is so much bigger. That was my approach in the bull market. Obviously, times have changed. I think we're in this weird period where it's really not that attractive to be a founder in NFTs, especially in the bear market. Like the scrutiny and the fire and the pressure that you are under is immense. Mm-hmm. And there's also the stigma that if you launch a project, you can't fail or you're a rugger, which the stereotype, I mean, it sort of came on for good reason, right? Because there's a lot of it in NFTs, but it's not the best narrative, because I believe that, you know, the best founders, especially if you look at like startup culture in the real world outside of this, which I'm not super ingrained in, but no one really hits it big on their first try, which I think holds back a lot of really talented, really bright individuals in the space from pushing us forward because they're afraid to launch a project. I think where I'm at with it is at some point I would like a project, like a company of mine, something of that nature, but that's like 5 years out when I think of what I want to do and how I want to get there. Right now, I think I'm much more focused on growing as a content creator, leveraging that growth to learn the shit that I need to learn and get and sit in the rooms that I need to sit at to really meet the people that can help me get to where I want to go, because I fully confident in what I think I could do as a founder, starting a company, anything of that nature. But it's not just in my like growth timeline. And as I zoom out 10 years, which can be very hard to do, believe me, I don't think launching a project at this point is in my cards at all, and not really something that interests me at all, because I'm loving what I'm doing right now. And just from like a knowledge growth perspective, I really feel like this is what I need to do to get myself at the level that I need to be at, because we're not there yet. And we shouldn't be, because I created this account in 2021 and I couldn't tell you what an NFT was. So I think for me right now, it's like grow as a content creator, build the largest community possible, and learn fucking everything.
Yeah, you want to be more of a polished individual from many aspects before you finally dive into it. A startup culture, I believe it's about one in 100 make it, and then it's 0.001% become those unicorns. I think there's about 1,200 companies in the world that are worth $1 billion or more. Yuga Labs is one of them, valued at. I think they're the only NFT company that's hit unicorn status, at least at this point in time. You can assume that there's going to be many, many more just through the trajectory of capital flow within the NFT space and like how hyperbolic and exponential it can become. But you want to be very firm in who you are and where you want to be. It's something that I've kind of myself personally throughout my life of going through multiple startups and here and finding like, what's my niche? What is my exact skill set? How do I apply it to the community? And within crypto, the community is by far de facto the most important thing, especially in the NFT space. If you have no community, you have no attention, right? And then you become one of those individuals who's very smart, but has 50 followers, but then you have to hire people to get into it. With your skill set, if you do the community first, Then you don't need a director of vibes. You're just you. Maybe you need a dev team of some sort. Do you engage in trading at all anymore? This is something that I see a lot of people shitting on the influencers that, you know, there's somebody who shills NFTs to their crowd, or they talk about it, but they don't trade because for whatever reason. And is it important for people with large followings to engage actively in NFT trading?
I love this question because we've been talking about it a lot, and I've been tweeting about it. And one of my goals, really like one of my main goals for 2023, was to become an active trader again, because I've always focused more on content than I have trading, just the nature of it, right? In the bull market, everything was going up, but so was engagement. And I was spending way more time on Twitter than I was on OpenSea. And that's just the nature of it. If I could do it over, I would do it again. But I hit this period where I blamed it on the bear market. In reality, it was just me not focusing on trading, where I probably went like 6 months, 6 months without even like touching my wallets. And I got to this point where I felt like I had lost touch. And it was an interesting sort of phenomena, because I am on Twitter all day, every day. I am fully aware of anything that happens in the NFT space. I am hosting spaces every day and talking about, listening to, and hearing about the things that are happening in the space. So I'm aware of them, but I was no longer boots down on the front lines like the people I was talking to about whatever was happening. And I felt like I was one of a larger group of really prominent voices in this space that essentially control the narrative. They don't trade NFTs, right? The people that are controlling the narrative and creating the content and hosting the spaces aren't trading NFTs. And it's like, it was small, little by little by little. I realized, like, wait, I'm out of touch, and I am doing myself a disservice, but most importantly, I'm doing my audience, who tunes in every day for 2, 3, 4 hours to listen to me talk about NFTs, a disservice by not fully being there with them, doing the same things they're doing. Because you get in this sort of rut where, yes, you understand what's happening, but you see something like feet pics go crazy and you're like, oh, fuck that. Like, it's just a stupid pump and dump, whatever. And it probably is, but you do that so many times over and over and over again. And you just write projects off because you're not researching them, because you're not trading. And I had to like really sit down and think to myself, like, yo, this is probably holding back your content more than you realize, because you aren't comfortable to talk about certain topics more than you realize. And as a result, you know, you're straying away from it. So 2023, that has been like a focus of mine, is like, be a fucking degen again. And that's what I've been doing is trading a lot. And, you know, I'm not a whale. I don't have massive bags, but just the act of like buying an NFT, selling it, seeing what's trending, seeing why it's trending, and genuinely looking at it from a perspective of, should I trade that? Should I not? I think is a game changer. I absolutely think that content creators in Web3 should be trading NFTs. Now, does every video editor or shit poster or meme or whatever have to be 100 transactions a day? Of course not. And I think as the space grows, there will be more and more creators that are less and less involved with the trading side of things. But I think if you are a Spaces host and you are hosting shows about NFTs in the market and what's happening and why, and you are not actively trading, the quality of your content is significantly lower than it should be. I saw that within myself and my own content, and made the transition. And it helps that the market is up, but I'm having a lot of fun trading. So I'm happy I did it, and it's going to continue to be a focus of mine for the immediate future.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. Actually, excuse me. I have begun trading more. I began actually trading PFPs for the first time towards the middle of last year. As the listeners know, I've been in the historical space for a long time, but I realized that my thoughts about about NFTs had become a little bit closed-minded. So I thought, hey, you know, the reason that I got into crypto was putting skin in the game to learn about this technology. I need to actively start trading some of these PFPs, or kind of just learning what the flows are. And I realized that just putting the skin in the game and kind of buying a PFP, entering the community, watching the hype, whether you agree with it or not, you're actively learning, and you're going to grow your community as well. But it also helps participate in this idea of the meta, which is a popular idea, which is essentially just the micro trends that happen. And right now, I've begun also trading more actively the last few months, you know, participating in the Blur farm airdrop, participating now. The meta is like open editions and the burning mechanisms, and just kind of learning that, because if you are a content creator, eventually, as you'd mentioned, building your audience then leads to founding a project. And if you aren't participating in any of this, then you don't know how to lead a team. You don't know what these micro trends are. You don't know how to manage a community, and so on and so forth. So something like these open editions is quite an interesting trend, because open editions have been around for a long time. They actually began, I think, on Nifty Gateway. That's how Beeple got into the space back in 2020. And now Manifold kind of brought it to the users, where now you can create your own contract with being a very simplistic, or just being a very simple-minded, smooth-brained person like myself, who has no technical abilities, but kind of learn things conceptually. What's your thoughts of open opinions? Have you participated in it with the minting and the burning? And do you think this is a narrative that has legs to then be some sort of infrastructure for builders in the future? Or do you think this is something that's just going to go away?
I like it. I like it because it's cool to see like real artists get the spotlight again. And you mentioned Nifty Gateway. That's really like, I bought first NFT Top Shot in like late 2020, but I was able to experience sort of Nifty Gateway. I got to mint an X copy, mint a Ferocious open edition. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but I think open editions give artists a lot of flexibility, and I love the burn meta, because I feel like as an artist, you, especially as a one-of-one artist, you get this like special intimate relationship with your collectors that you can't get from a PFP. But outside of that, you have a completely different experience than a lot of these like PFP founders, because you probably have smaller edition sizes. They are trading way less. There isn't the same like roadmap, hype, activation events, way less commentary around your art. And it's more of like a collector's item, which is great. But I feel like this burn meta, we'll call it, opens up a ton more flexibility for an artist. And they get to then have larger editions with the opens, have a larger collector base, and then incorporate the same like fun and attention and excitement that a PFP project could do through burns, through airdrops, and things of that nature. So I think it is giving a lot of artists an opportunity to like experience sort of this, the fun of having like 10,000 collectors that are hyped and that are engaged and are excited for something that you're doing. And it's no longer like you drop an art piece and then it's just art, because yes, it is just art, but you are also adding, you know, utility in a sense, or activation items that create just a lot of fun and a lot of energy that might be new to a lot of artists. So it's pretty cool to see that. And it's cool to see like art genuinely leading this trend.
The burn mechanics also show who the active collectors are in your community, because if you get to mint 3 and then you take 2 of them and burn it, then you know who's the collectors and who's an active community participant. So you could kind of then reward those later on who are continually playing within these games. I know you have to go here pretty shortly. You have your show, which I'll probably be participating in. I proposed a question right before we came on, and I'm curious what your answer is. So I'll propose it to you before we get out of here. I said that who is the leading contenders to become the main characters of the 2024 crypto bull run? For those that don't know, the cliche of crypto is that you'd never want to be the main characters, as the main characters for this last bull run was Barry. It was Do Kwon, it was the Three Arrows Capitals, and it was Sam Bankman-Fried. I don't know if anyone saw that infamous meme where it had all of those characters kind of rolling the dice that somebody had posted towards like the beginning of the year, and said that the bear market is not over until all these main characters are taken out. And that's exactly what happened. So, you don't have to throw people under the bus, but who are the essentially the breakout people that are looking to, that you are following, that you think can finally be these people? And there are also people who become main characters who end up becoming very successful, like people like Kobe and a bunch of these all other traders. I think Moon Overlord was somebody who became a main character and has done very well as well.
There's a couple. Yeah, you never want to be the main character. It's a good question. There's a couple in the NFT space that I see being main characters in like a Yuga Labs fashion, like a Gordon Goner, like doing it the right way, that I think can build, unicorns. There's really 2 in particular. They're both positives. I think that Frank D. Gods is fucking incredible. I met him at Basel, but I got to like really meet him in LA, go to the D. Gods house and just sort of get a taste of like what their life is like. And honestly, going to the D God's house was like one of the main I had this like internal voice telling me like, yo, you need to get to fucking LA. Cause it's just like, that guy is, I don't even know how to put it. Like he's like the next fucking Steve Jobs. Like that guy is sensational. The way that he thinks, the way that he operates, the way that like he literally lives, breathes, and bleeds his company. It was genuinely eye-opening. Like I was just like, I was like a fan observing how he operates. Obviously master at garnering and capturing attention. And we saw that at, I would say, like a small to medium scale this cycle, as like the attention and the hype around D-Gods and Utes heightened. It got pretty crazy around like the Utes mint and all that. But I feel very strongly that like he's gonna be on Yuga's level, in my opinion. I really have no doubts about it. The other one that I'm just like blown away by is Luca from Pudgy Penguins. Got to really, met him at Basel as well, but got to like really meet him in LA. And it was like, oh my God. Like there are a lot of projects trying to fill the sort of like the cute children's everywhere brand. I mean, like there's V-Friends and there's all these, there's a ton of them. Pudgy Penguins and Luca, that guy to me is like, he's a visionary in the truest sense. And it was those 2 who I was like, yo, I need to come here like now. Like I should have been here a year ago, because they really are going to be the people that lead this space, that lead adoption. And the fact that they're so young is incredible. I really think that there's a shit ton of bad actors. There's a lot of shady smoke and mirrors, bad stuff that goes on in the space. But the genuine core builders that are going to push us to the next level are really fucking bright. And this is their life. And experiencing that and really getting to connect with them over that was I mean, it was an incredible experience. Like those two, I could not be more bullish on and could not say enough positive things about.
Well, it's incredible to hear. We do need to have a lot more uplifting positivity, a lot more collaboration. I know the NFT community can get very tribal. It's not just NFTs, right? It's crypto. You have the Bitcoin maxis, and it kind of just like transgresses downwards to all the different blockchains. But we all do need to work together, right? We're not all going to make it. That's definitely not true. But we're all going to build together, and we can increase the the size of the pie if we do this and become more collaborative. And also just stop hating on everyone, dude. It's just like that absolutely does not get anywhere. I do understand frustrations, especially when everything is an investable asset that you can make money off of or lose everything as well. Combine that with degen culture, and it could be a recipe for success or for detriment. So Thread Guy, thanks for coming on, bro. Appreciate doing this. A year later, you've grown to astronomical levels. I'm excited to do this again probably years from now, and then see you at, I don't know, 1 million or something like that.
Dude, it was awesome. Got to give you some flowers. Incredible interviewer. Kind of forgot we were even on a podcast for a second. So you're the GOAT at it. We got to make this an annual thing. We'll do a lock in January 22 next year and run it back. But man, I really enjoyed it. Glad I could come on again. And you know, I'm a huge fan of yours and everything you're doing. So it's always a pleasure when we get to sit down and talk.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Whenever you're out in Vegas, man, let me know. Drinks on me. So thanks, Thread Guy. I know you're going to crush it on your podcast. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time.